This episode is delivered and presented by runners for runners and is for your easy pace runs. Welcome to Runversation, a conversational pace running podcast and a movement for everyday runners. Hi, I'm Rochelle and this is my co-host Kate. And hello to you, the runners tuning in. How's your week been?
It's been okay, but I'm feeling a little bummed actually.
Yeah?
Well, no, look, life's pretty good. But running question, talking about running, I feel down because I've had 2 weeks of very low running cadence because I've just felt a bit meh running, and the physio in me is like, no total rest, but just have a little bit of downtime. So I did, took my own advice as hard as that was. Had a couple of weeks down and I've done a couple of test runs, and I, to be honest, don't really feel any better. I just feel like in a bit of a lull and everything's just a bit harder than it should be, and I'm like, this does make sense.
But remember, like, besides running, you have just moved an entire country and an entire family from one place to another.
Yes.
So, like, your body is going to be tired, stressed.
Yeah. This is true. And when we moved, so for anyone listening, my husband and I and our 2 kids, we just spent a year in Seychelles. So if you don't know where that is, I recommend you Google image it rather than Google it. It's beautiful tropical islands, like a heaven on earth.
It's like a movie set.
Literally, and the photos that you see actually don't even do it justice. It's just beautiful. Like, we went swimming one day, it was just turtles, little sharks, like it was just incredible. I say one day, we did that most days. I did work in that time, no problem. But this is true because we did just move back, and having a 2 and a 3-year-old, it is not easy in that process too. And then I noticed since I've been back, it's like straight back into work, moving the house, setting up our house and everything. And I think I just don't realise, or maybe even like give myself permission to consider how hard those things are as well.
It's stressful.
Stress.
It kind of leads into what I was going to say, but first let's introduce ourselves again. For those who didn't listen to our intro pod, this is Kate and I am Rochelle, and this is Runversation.
Welcome.
So, stress. It's exactly what you are. Stress.
Yes, stressed. And I always like to, because I think some people don't like to admit that they're stressed. But so then I always think of this of like stressed and busyness as well. And they are obviously different because you can be really busy but handle it fine and not be stressed. Yeah. But they often do go hand in hand. Obviously the way we can look at them is different. But for me, I'm like busy and stressed, and it's the busyness that makes
it's stressful.
Me stressed.
And it's not like, I'm not talking about like mental health when I say stress. I'm talking about actual physical draining stress on the body without knowing. So like you're subconsciously just stressed and you're trying to pretend that you're not.
Yeah. And it's like, you say physical, but it's mental so much as well. So me being total research nerd that I am, it's like stress, and I say this to so many of my clients who will come in and see me and say virtually exactly what I just said to you at the start. They say, Kate, I've had this niggle, I've had it for a while, but all of a sudden it's flared up. Like, one of my big examples that come to mind is a young runner that I was working with, and she could handle pretty big K. She was an ultra runner. And then she presented to me and she was really upset because she had a stress fracture. And she'd never had one before, and I looked at her training load and I was just on her training peaks and I was looking through it and I was like, there's nothing really that stood out to me. And this is a common theme that I see, and I'm sure you see with your athletes too. And then I was like, this weekend was a bit busy in terms of your training here, but nothing to be concerned about. And then she said, but I had 2 weeks of exams. And then in that exam time, because she couldn't work her normal day shifts, her work was even her night shifts as well. So she was doing her exams, night shift working and running. And I was like, do you know what, it's that. And research supports this, like stress can be one of the biggest indicators that you're at risk of an injury.
Absolutely. You're not sleeping, so your body's not recovering in its deepest sleep. You're probably not eating as well as you should. You're just literally on the go doing one thing after the other.
So what would you say, Rochelle, like for me, for example, and I'm like, because this is what I find hard, is that I'm a bit stressed in life. I know it'll pass, and I know it depends, how different people tolerate that. But then I find the hard thing is, because I'm stressed and I got a lot going on, I just want to go for a run because it's my stress relief. And then I kind of want to run hard because I feel like I need a good sweat session just to make myself feel better. Is that a good or a bad thing for me?
It's a good thing as long as you take out the fact that you're tired, right? So you need to run to your effort, not to what you can do in the past.
So you're like, get rid of the pace, like
don't even look at your watch, just go for a jog.
I like this a lot. This is what I tell my people when I do their strength training. I'm like, use, we call it reps in reserve, right? And I'm like, use that of how you feel, because one day you might feel like dynamite in the gym, and then the next day you're like, ugh, I don't feel good. So I'm like, well, dial your weights back. And it's the same effort. So it's exactly what you're saying.
It's just run to effort. Your kids might have a sniffle, and your body might be taking that on, and we're super mums, right? So if we're sick, we still go about life as normal. So if your kids have a sniffle, you might be run down, but your body and your mind is just thinking it's normal. So off you go and you run, and you're like, why is my heart rate so high? Why can't I hold this pace? There's a lot going on.
And do you know what's interesting too? Again, this is my research and I'm going into it, because I've obviously super nerded these things. But it's interesting too, because that stress can actually interfere in the way that your brain works as well. So, and I think sometimes as runners too, we go, well, we're not in a team sport, right? No. So we know that stress can really negatively impact both performance and injury risk in team sports, because you're getting slower response times, because say you've got something going on and then you're lacking sleep, like you said, maybe not eating as well, so your recovery is going downhill too. But to me, that still matters in running. And because if you're running, and let's say, like I just said to you, I was like, feeling frustrated, stressed, I just want to go out for a run, and I run a little bit harder, but I feel, then I know that my biomechanics may be slightly altered because I'm fatigued. My reaction times aren't quite there.
The same,
all these things. So would you say that there would be any thought process in, okay, I know you want to go hard, but dial it back?
Yes. Well, because the risk of injury is going to be greater, right? If you're not switched on and you're not thinking about your technique, you could jump off not jump, but step off a curb and not necessarily twist your ankle, but the jar goes up the leg, and then it creates
flowing from there. And I've definitely found this, in that everyone is different. For example, talking about me, I know I'm more susceptible to injuries when I'm stressed than, for example, Nick. So anyone listening, Nick is my husband. He's an ex-professional triathlete. And most people, like me, resent Nick because he is one of those people that just looks like he's jogging, but he's running so fast. And he never gets injured. I am well, Nick, you got a physio on tap. I will be injuring.
Get injured so I can fix you.
And he just doesn't get injured. And if he does, he'll get a tiny little hamstring niggle that he'll maybe complain about for 2 days, and then it's gone. So literally, and this is in, we've been together 10, 11 years. I can't think of one injury of his that I've actually had to properly manage. And again, research supports this too, that it's not only stress, but it's the way that you respond to stress. So there's a few things that I kind of want to break down with you here, Rochelle, because again, I get in my nerdy little rabbit hole, and I want you to help me go through these and give your input as an athlete and a coach.
Go.
So the stress response is one thing. So when you are stressed, it's you've got really high responders to that, where they can almost manifest it. And I think I'm one of those. Then you've got people who deal with it a lot better, who don't worry so much about their stressful situation or its effect, and that's a lot, obviously, easier for them, and they're less likely to get stressed. So I want to start with that, and then I'm going to go on to a bit more chronic and acute stress. So what advice would you give to, say, me? Well, actually, I'll take you through a couple of my thoughts, again, on the research, and tell me what you think is most practical. So interestingly, to help manage stress, and someone like myself, now Nick is obviously very good at that, But I do know that research supports any form of like just psychosocial behavioural intervention. So mindfulness, like being aware of it but not manifesting it. It can be really, really helpful, like relaxation. So everyone has their different versions of how they like to relax.
Yeah, I can't meditate.
No, I'm like, it makes me more stressed. I'm like, I should be doing something.
Yeah.
I know. And then the other one was actually being social with friends.
Yeah.
It was one of the other really big things.
Yeah.
So like, what would you say as a coach or an athlete yourself, or what have you found helps, or, you know, what would your advice like say to me be, and what do you find helps you?
So one thing that I like to tell my athletes, especially younger athletes, is you still need to be able to enjoy life and your own experiences. So if being social is important to you, ask those friends to come along for a run, have a conversation, make it an easy paced jog, a conversational paced jog. And that way you're filling your social cup, but then you're also filling your physical cup without necessarily putting those extra strains on the run, because you're not thinking about how hard it is because you're with people that you're enjoying.
Yeah, I love that, because that kind of reminds me of like our runs. Now, obviously, I've been living overseas for the last year, so I haven't really had much.
We've been running for a little while.
But it's made a difference to me, and you know, I found that when I was away, I really only had one running friend on the island, because it was a tiny island with a small amount of people.
Yeah.
But I would run with this one friend, if she's listening, hi Zoe, and I would run with her, and she would like listen to all my problems.
Yeah.
And then I would listen to all of hers, and then we'll talk about all the things, just like virtually how you feel from conversation. It was these things that then made me feel better. Yeah. And we would do it all at conversation pace. If anything, it was good because it kept me at conversation pace, because I was like, oh, I have so much to say. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, because it's exciting, right? And you're enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like when I have my coaching sessions on a Saturday morning, the biggest thing for us at the end of a session is actually sitting down as a group and having coffee. Yeah. Because then what we're doing is we're talking and filling our social cup, but at the same time, we can then go back and think about what it is that we've just done and discuss any issues that we may have with the training that we've just been doing. So sometimes we'll have a group and one person might just be having a really bad day, they're not hitting their targets and they get really frustrated, and the person that's normally running next to them is running ahead of them. So being able to talk about that afterwards without it leaving the training session and going home with you is also important.
Yeah, and I think that too, knowing like that those stressful events has such an impact on performance as well, and give yourself a break, because otherwise you are just going to go into like a rabbit hole. And that's where, for example, using someone like Nick or even yourself, like a high performing athlete, when you've had something big going on in your life, and this can be, so research does show that obviously the more severe life event, the more influence it's going to have. So that's, you know, you're talking about a long-term relationship ending, or a loss of a loved one, or just something really big. Has such a big effect on performance. And thankfully, I'm going to use Nick as an example here. He hasn't had any of those things happen recently, but he, you know, for example, his professional triathlon career sort of came to like a sudden end over COVID. Really, because he didn't get to race. And like, that's a big thing. Like,
it is a huge thing.
It's kind of like losing a job, I guess.
It's the same for me. That happened to me. I was at the peak of my sport when COVID hit.
There you go. So how did you, like, that's a stressful event. Like, do you feel like that impacted your recovery, your performance, like, and then how did you manage it, or did you feel like you handled it well at the start and it didn't have an effect?
I think I spiraled into my chronic fatigue during that time, because I was wanting to do so much, and so because there was nothing available to do, I was doing more than I should have as well. And so it just spiraled out of control to the point where I just physically burnt myself out and I had to take some time off. And it wasn't until I had those 3 months off that I was like, oh, there's actually a lot more to life than just sport. And so getting back into sport has been harder, because now that COVID's happened and we weren't racing, that first race back is challenging because I've had so much time away. The nerves and the anxiety before have grown. So yeah, it's challenging.
Yeah, I found the same like after I had the boys. So like we went through a lot of IVF and then 2 pregnancies in quick succession, which was just a long time off for me. And before we had known we had any fertility issues, I was like training so much. I was racing quite a bit. I felt really good. And then going back to it, it was almost like running became a little bit stressful for me because I was like, when am I going to get back to my pre-levels and that? And then I had the stress of the boys, the busyness of that, returning to work, and then I was making running a stressful thing, and I changed that, and I was like, no, it shouldn't be a stress. Remove that.
And that's the same. Like I made running a negative part of my life because I wanted to be where I was prior. Yeah. And it was frustrating because my peak was ended with COVID because we couldn't travel. Yeah. All the races were cancelled. Yeah. We weren't allowed to run with friends. Yeah. Yeah.
So you then don't have your management strategies either.
No.
Because you're like, I am stressed about COVID, I'm worried about my running career, and I can't see my friends like I would like. Exactly. You don't have that.
And I didn't have a job, so I just was in my own headspace because, you know, FIFO wife. Yeah. You know, 1 week you've got somebody there to talk about these things with, and then the next week they're completely gone. And prior to having my son, I would just sit in my own thoughts. Yeah. Now that I've got him, he's a good distraction when my husband's away. Yeah. But still, like. Yeah. Yeah.
You're like missing that management strategy, which is key. So if anybody is experiencing a stressful event, and I do want to touch on the acute and chronic stress as well, but if you are, I'll tell you, your research supports having a form of, and I know this sounds obvious, but sometimes we just need to be told that you need a form of intervention. And this research, like your biggest systematic reviews show that all types of interventions help. You just have to find what helps for you.
What works for you.
What works for you, exactly. And I did want to touch on then like how you can identify that stress or something else in training. But before that, your acute versus chronic, the repercussions of stress are worse with a chronic stress. Yeah. So this can be something, like for me, obviously moving country is relatively acute. It's not something...
I mean, it's pretty big.
But I don't want to do it again. Yes, it's a big thing, but a short thing. I'm like, I've done it once to move there or once to move back.
And you did that in a short time too.
Yes, it was a really short time. Before that, we'd moved to Bustleton, then back to like Perth, and then to there. Woof, it's just a lot, right? And then a totally different living environment with no friends. Like it was all a bit like that. So I think that for me as well, I had this acute thing that kind of triggered the final feeling like the way I do now in terms of the sluggish in my running and wondering why when I knew I had my training load managed. But it's actually more the chronic thing that I wanted to touch on. So, for example, I know I brought up my athlete earlier, the runner, but I've also had so many people who come to me and they say, you know, I've had a little bit of a back niggle for, like, Kate, you know, I've had it on and off for 12, 18, 24 months. Yeah. Right? And it's never caused me an issue or an Achilles issue or something like that. And then they'll come in and see me and go, but it's just flared up. And they'll say, I didn't do anything different. I did the same gym routine, I've done the same training, and everything just looks the same. They might not have even increased their weights, increased their run Ks. I've looked over the training, the intensity, everything is the same. Yeah. And then they've had this huge exacerbation of their symptoms. And then I've even gone through and looked at what's happened with them lately. Yeah. And they're like, there's not even a stressful life event, like there's nothing else going on. Yeah. And then I'll chat to them and I'll go, okay, well, take me through like a little bit more. What else has gone on? What's changed?
What's the day like?
Yeah. And then they're like, oh, well, I changed jobs about 3 months ago. And I started this big project and we're about to submit it. And I'm like, here it is. So it's like, I would also encourage a lot of people to backtrack as well. Yeah. And it's this chronic stress that we experience too, or I find this a lot even with new mums. Yeah. You're in this like newborn bubble, you've taken time off running, you get back into running, you feel really good, you manage your training load because you know how important it is. Yeah. You've done even a couple of races. So I'm hoping this can be, when I say new mums, like, you know, in the first couple of years, like you and I, we've got, you know, pretty much same age as Kai, who, you know, we're talking like for us, we've got 3 and I've got a 3 and a 4-year-old. And now I'm getting back into training, but it's this cumulative stress of being a mom and working and trying to do everything that now I'll get injuries so much easier. Yeah. And I'm like, why? And then I think it's because I'm old. I'm not that old.
lot of things come back. So you're like hormones.
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
So
you got like pregnancy, postpartum hormones, but the other thing I'm glad you brought up. Sorry everybody, that is my Jack Russell, who is a wonderful running friend. Also, not the quietest of dogs. Out of all my children, he's the hardest to control. Yes, easiest in many ways. He doesn't talk back, but hardest to discipline. He doesn't respond. I should give him a treat. But that's it anyway. What was this? Yes, hormones.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think we forget about stress too is the change in hormones. So like cortisol going through the roof and the effect that has. What other things do you feel like, if, say we're talking about training load,
yes,
and if you're looking at an athlete's program, let's say you've gone over like their intensity, their volume, everything, and you've got tick, tick, tick for you as the program side, like you tick all those boxes. What other things, when you talk to an athlete, or for our listeners, like should they be asking themselves to see if this is contributing?
Life balances is probably the big thing. So with a lot of young athletes who are still at school, they may love running and they've got their running program outside of that, but then they go to school and they've got their physical education classes and they're doing more sport on top of that. And then they're doing more sport, say, inter-school or carnivals, and their sports teachers don't necessarily know what it is that they're doing before. So there's like a break in the link already there. But then also, they're teenagers, so they've got social lives and they might have other activities like, I don't know, skateboarding or cycling or motorbike riding that also are causing extra stresses. So it's having everybody in their corner working together and communicating so that they know what's going on.
Yeah, and I guess it's the same even in like adult runners too, right?
Yeah,
so
of course, yeah.
Let's say, for example, someone who, you know, works full time or maybe even is a FIFO worker like that. What do you feel like you would need to consider in like his training, or what does he do, or what advice do you give him?
Well, FIFO workers fly, right?
Yep.
So they need to understand that flying in a plane dehydrates the body and it changes the body in ways that you don't really recognise. So I never give Matt a run on a fly in or fly out day because it's going to allow his body to have one, an extra rest, but two, adapt to the changes.
Yeah.
So that's one big thing with Matt. He also works 12-hour days, and so do many FIFO workers.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's even more depending on the industry that they're in. Matt works in the aerodrome industry, so they could have a delayed flight, and then that pushes their day out to 15 hours. So how I manage that with Matt, or I've actually got other FIFO clients, is I say to them, if you have a big day and you can't get to your session, then
sorry, got our dog in attendance now.
If Matt finishes work super late, the first thing I always say to him is make sure you get your dinner in now. If he's quite a stubborn person, he will still want to train. I say give your body an hour and then go to the gym.
Yeah.
A lot of other people don't like to do that, so I say forget about that day and continue on with the next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would you say, like in an athlete who has, say, experienced like, let's not even go on the stress side, let's go on like the real busyness side.
Yeah.
And say that's associated with a bit of stress there too. Would you say to them, because this is the quality versus the quantity thing, right?
Yeah.
So say you've got an athlete who works 12-hour days. So say they work like, and we work with a lot of these athletes, so they're real. In fact, this might be you as a listener.
Yeah.
So let's go with a 10-hour day.
Yeah.
A nurse, for example.
On their feet
or
all
a
day.
doctor, on their feet, shift work.
Yeah.
Right?
Probably not wearing really good footwear.
No, for example, exactly. So they've got that, okay, but then they go, but I've signed up for a marathon, I want to get a PB, okay? Would your advice be, all right, we're going to dial back the intensity and just focus on the Ks?
Yeah.
Or would you go, no, let's keep the quality of the sessions, do less, obviously you can have a combo, like what would your advice be to someone like that?
First I'd ask, like, how many steps are they taking in a day? So some nurses cover like half marathons in a day.
Yeah.
So that's enough time on legs already. So if they're doing hours like that, I would then put in quality sessions that are shorter and sharper.
Yeah.
Just to give them that variation, because your body's not going to absorb easy running if you're already doing easy walking or hours. So they've already got time on legs, so it's just about getting that speed work in. And speed work sessions, where they're fartlek or intervals, are generally shorter in time frame. So then it's going to give their bodies enough time to recover as well before.
Okay, that makes total sense. I never thought of that. I love that. Genius.
But then long runs, right?
Yeah.
So like Sunday long runs, it's always been a Sunday.
Yeah.
But some nurses work on a Sunday. So how are they going to get a Sunday long running and their like job? Then you need to ask them, right, during the week, what is the best time frame where you've got X amount of time to be able to get something bigger done?
Yeah.
If they've got kids, okay, it's not going to be when they're with their kids because they won't spend time with them. It's going to have to be, say, if they're at school.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the day, then you've got to take in things like what the temperature's like, the hydration. Did they get enough sleep the night before? Have they had a good breakfast? Blah, blah, blah.
Do you know it's so interesting you say that? It's like, the Sunday long run, like, I think we all get caught in that trap almost of it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yes, I understand it's a week, and that's fine for people who work in a week and like that structure and it works, bliss.
Yeah.
And that manages stress. But then you get people who don't follow that, or their rosters change.
Yeah.
Like I have a lot of people, or even you touched on this when you were a baker, and you said it was like 3 till 10, 2 days, and then the next 2 days would be like the afternoon one, then you'd swap. And there are a lot of people, police officers, like there are so many people who work like this.
Yeah.
And you've got to swap. And then I'm like, but you don't have to do a 7-day cycle.
No.
There's even like some research, and I know that there are athletes who do a long run every 10 days.
Yeah.
And I actually did this myself when I was training up for my first marathon after having the boys.
Yeah.
I was just really anxious that I would have to take time off running because I'd taken so long off over our fertility and pregnancies. I was like, I mentally couldn't handle if I had to take time off from running, because this is the other thing about stress. You're stressed, you want to run, you get injured because you're stressed, and then you're more stressed because now you're stressed and stressed about your injury.
Yeah.
You're like, now I'm a giant bowl of injured stress.
Yeah, all the emotions.
No. So I was like, I don't want to be in that situation.
No, nobody does.
So then I do my long run every 10 days.
Yeah.
And well, not touch wood, it's gone. But I was so happy because I didn't get injured.
Yeah.
And I just was like, for me to work around, I would do like generally a long run on the weekend, and then the following one would be on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then it was the following weekend, and the following Wednesday, and I'd just change it. I'd see like who wanted to do my long run with me, and then I could be flexible with the days.
That's it.
And it was perfect.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I got less of a stimulus from that. It kept my injuries at bay.
Yeah. I mean, you're still getting that time on legs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just you're giving your body like another 2 or 3 days to absorb all the training that you've done prior to that.
Exactly.
So long runs are supposed to be just time on legs. They're not necessarily supposed to be a hard hit out session.
Yeah.
And a lot of marathon runners don't do long runs as often, but they'll do bigger quality sessions throughout the week so that it matches up quite well.
Yeah, I like that. What are your other thoughts on, say, the busyness side of things, of like a split run day? Do you feel like it adds unnecessary extra time on the feet, or do you feel like it's a good thing? I suppose there's pros and cons.
I guess it depends. Like if you're training for a marathon specifically, time on legs is good, and learning to run on tired legs is also good because at the back end of a marathon, that's what it's going to be like. If you're training for a 5 or a 10K or even a half marathon, splitting it up isn't necessary. I mean, you can get away with just doing one session a week. And a lot of my clients are busy and they don't have that time to be able to do 2 runs.
Yeah.
So just making that one run that you do when you do it quality, or making sure that it's to the pace that's required and effort is better than the split.
Makes sense.
What do you reckon?
This is an interesting one. I look at it, I can't help but use my physio.
your science.
Right, exactly. So so to me, I think of the loading on the bones, muscles and tendons.
Yeah.
If you are stressed, you're really busy and you're worried about a tendinopathy or a bone stress injury, I'd be like, don't split them. Even though it's like, you would think, well, that would give me rest. But I'm like, but you need to, how that works is you need to load and then rest it.
Yes.
And that rest period needs to be like 24 hours.
Yeah.
In tendons, it's even 48 to 72 hours.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm like, you're loading at 12 hours here, you're loading at 12 hours there, and then you're going to sleep, and then you're going to load it again in the morning. Like, you actually haven't given your bones or your tendons enough time to recover from the previous session.
Correct. Yeah.
So I give them out only if it's like to add in extra Ks and they're not at risk. I think if you're already at higher risk of an injury because you're busy or stressed, I don't think that from a physiological point of view they're good. Again, going back to the good old Nick and Kate, Nick would be fine with it. I probably wouldn't, because I wouldn't give my body enough time to recover exactly physiologically, and that's just physiological. Like that, everyone's similar-ish in that way. So I'm like, well, for me, it's not worth it.
I have a client who had major surgery on an artery and is coming back into training. And so one thing that I make sure we do so that his body is resting is, if he does a session, say Monday morning, if he does happen to run the following day, it's not going to be until the afternoon.
Yes.
So there's more than 24 hours there.
I like that.
Because some people get so fixated in they have to run every single day.
Yes.
But if you can like space it out and program it in a way so that they see AM, PM, you're secretly giving them extra rest time without them feeling like that.
Yeah. So you would run, say, like Monday morning, Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
Yes. I actually did this a lot in Seychelles because the load of the ground, it was so cambered, it would just destroy my feet. Yeah. And I was a bit stressed and it was hot and there was just so much going on that I would often have to run. I either had to run early morning or late afternoon. It was so hot I couldn't run in the middle of the day. I was just like a sweaty puddle passed out on the side of the road. Someone to come take me. Yes. And so if I'd run in the afternoon and I'd be like, I want to run in the morning to fit it in my day, but I can't, and that would just be silly because I wouldn't have recovered properly. So that's definitely something I subconsciously like always applied to it. So what we're saying is, really, if you are a stressed, busy person, I think that often when we try and look at ways to manage it, you look at your training load and you might think it's all okay, but you should change.
Peel it back.
Yeah, peel it back. Don't run by pace, run by feel. That might be. Or if you're like me and you're sitting there and your running is just going a bit downhill and your training load looks good, or you've even dialed it back and you're still running slower, or it feels just harder. Yeah. And you've looked at your training peaks, you've looked at your whatever platform you use and you go, it looks good. Think about what's going on in your life. Like, is there other things going on? And don't ignore those things. And maybe sometimes to like have a chat to someone about it. Yeah. Because like Rochelle said, she's picked up on me going, okay, you've moved country, you've had quite a lot going on. And I'm like, do you think it's a lot? She's like, yes.
And different seasons of the year.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It is very
I have a question. It's just popped into my head because it's somewhat related to stress. What are your thoughts on Strava?
Do you know, okay, I think it very much depends on the athlete. Yeah. But I overall feel like this quote, and I live by this quote, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah, okay, that's cool, yeah.
You jump on there and you feel so good about your run and you're like, yes, nailed it. And then you scroll through and you're like, oh, but they ran faster than me, and they ran faster than me, and they did this today. Yeah. And their easy run is at 4:44s and mine's at 5:34s, and and then before you know it, you've psyched yourself out. You've added stress to your mind.
Exactly,
because you're comparing yourself. Your self-confidence plummets. Yes. Then you're going out and you're trying to run faster because you're trying to prove to people who don't actually care.
Nobody cares.
How fast your slow run is. And then in your mind you're like, yes, nailed it, I got more kudos because it's like 5 seconds per K faster, but you've just fatigued yourself even more. And to me, no. I think certain personalities should stay away from Strava. Yes. Or strategically put it on private and only follow people that they know.
They're not going to judge.
Yes. What's your thoughts?
Well, you kind of nailed what I was going to say, but then you said like you get kudos and you feel good about yourselves, and you may get more kudos on one run than another. But have you ever thought about it's the time of the day that you post that run?
And it's apparently, if you post in media with your run, you're like 8 times more likely to get a kudos.
Yeah, but most people sit and scroll on their phone at night time, right?
Yeah.
So if you just uploaded your run because you've done it in the afternoon at night, of course you're going to get more kudos.
This is why you run in the afternoon.
Oh,
Yes, me doing my little 5 a.m. uploads, nobody even awake.
Exactly. So like you feel shitty that nobody's giving you kudos, but nobody's awake to give you kudos.
Do you know what? This is so true because Seychelles and Perth obviously have time differences. So I would upload runs at normal Seychelles times, and all my I had like 4 Seychelles friends, but my 4 Seychelles friends would all like it. They'll give me kudos.
Yes.
And then no one from Perth did, and I'd be like, oh, they've ditched me.
But they're asleep.
Time difference.
So there you go. Now you can feel better about yourself.
So I would finish my runs at like 6:30 a.m. and that's 2:30 a.m. here. Oh my gosh,
Exactly.
they're
They're
up to
asleep.
see my run.
So now you can feel better about your running.
I feel so much better now.
See?
Wow. But let's be real, everybody. Since I've got back to Perth, I've got no more kudos.
So if you've loved listening to this episode and us crap on about stress in our lives, please make sure you follow us on Instagram or any of the channels that you listen to this. Make sure you subscribe, and also if you've got any questions, leave a comment. That would be much appreciated.
Definitely. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you stay updated for our weekly releases on all the interesting topics that are going to help you run better.
Keep the Runversation going.